All right, guys. Stephen Coons on point with my intro there. Let's talk about Pochettino's potential November roster because we have quite a few injuries. Some guys that are in or out of the mix. We're not quite sure. So I'm going to attempt today to do my best prediction of this roster. Now, keep in mind, before you go to the comments, this is not my roster or what I think we should do. This is what I think Pochettino is going to do. And then we can make our own judgments on what we think based on that. Okay. How are you guys doing? Happy Wednesday. Some interesting news today. Keiro Figueroa, some of you guys remember him from the under 17s, has made Liverpool's bench today in the Carabao Cup after scoring a couple of goals, I think 4 goals for the youth teams, which is interesting to make even their bench. And yes, it's Carabao Cup. Doesn't mean anything in the long term, of course, necessarily. Sometimes they rest players and they give you players a chance to sit on the bench. But it is kind of a cool development. So something to keep an eye on there. I doubt he's going to get off the bench today. I'd be very surprised. But it is cool to see. Also reports that Josh Winder was supposed to start today under Jose Mourinho. But unfortunately, he pulled a calf. I think he has a calf strain or a thigh strain, one of the two. And unfortunately, he will not be starting. So let's take Jaker says Liverpool washed AF. Yeah. Liam West played for Copenhagen today. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So goalkeepers, Matt Freese and Matt Turner. That's almost for sure going to be there, those two. Matt Turner no longer in the playoffs. Matt Freese is in the playoffs, but the MLS playoffs will not be happening during this camp. Just to be clear, guys, this roster is going to be announced next week. I'm hearing Thursday, November 6th. The games are against Uruguay and Paraguay on the 15th of November and the 18th of November. Paraguay on the 15th, Uruguay on the 18th. So yeah, this is what I think is going to happen. Matt Turner, Matt Freese, Chris Brady. But guys, the third one could be Chris Brady. It could be Patrick Schulte. It could be what's his name? Roman Celentano. It could be Jonathan Klinsmann. It could be Zach Steffen. It's just we have no idea with this third roster. It could be Diego Cochin for all we know. I'd say that's unlikely. But my guess is he's going to bring Brady, Freese, and Turner. Turner's no longer playing because New England didn't make the playoffs, whereas as of now, Brady and Freese are both in the playoffs. I just, Pochettino hinted that Matt Turner might get some minutes in this camp. I would stick with Matt Freese, to be honest. He only has 11 caps, and he's got very limited experience against, good teams outside of MLS. So if he's going to be your number one at the World Cup, then you want to give him as much experience as possible against international teams like Uruguay and Paraguay. Or maybe he'll give them a game each. I don't know. I would start Matt Freese, but we'll see what Pochettino does. This is probably the 3 goalkeepers that we're looking at. That third one, I throw Chris Brady in there, but no idea who that third goalkeeper is going to be. I'll be honest. It could be absolutely anyone. Poch has really mixed it up in every single camp, so it's hard to say for sure. Fumar Mota says, where is Steffen? He hasn't called Steffen up for a very, very long time, so I would be surprised if he called him up now. But then again, you never know. All right, let's go to fullbacks now. So Antonee Robinson is still out with his injury, so he won't be there. Serginho Dest, Alex Freeman, and Max Arfson are the fullbacks I think he calls up. Now, there could be a fourth. The natural fourth would be Joe Scally, but there is no evidence that Poch is going to call up Joe Scally. So maybe Nathan Harriel. It's hard to know with Poch. Who else could he possibly bring in? I mean, look, there are guys like Brian Reynolds and Marlon Fossey who could be there. Wiley is playing, and let me address this super chat now from Adam. Why not give Lund a look if not JS, if not Joe Scally? I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of Lund, but he is playing and starting in the Bundesliga. So if there ever was a time to give him a shot, Why not now? Right? Why not now? We'll see. We'll see what Poch does. I think more than likely he would try to find some MLS fullback to bring. John Tolkien's a possibility. He, looked okay. I watched him yesterday against Wolfsburg. They Holstein Kiel ended up winning that game in the DFB Cup. So yeah, he is a possibility. Paredes is injured, Fumar. He's been injured yet again. So it's pretty much over for him. Caleb Wiley's a possibility as a fourth fullback. But these are the three I know he's going to bring, so long as they're healthy, obviously. He's going to bring these three. He could add a fourth. And that fourth could be absolutely anyone. You just don't know with Poch. Nathan Harriel would not surprise me, believe it or not. So that's fullbacks. Center backs. I think it's going to be Noah Banks, Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, Chris Richards, and Tim Ream. Really, these are the options we have. CCV got injured, right? So he's not going to be out for at least 2 months, so he's not going to be there. So then who's it going to be? There's not many options. The only other one I could think he maybe brings in is Tristan Blackman instead of Noah Banks. Now, Noah Banks started 3 games in a row for Augsburg. He looked very good. He looked very good in one of them. He even scored. And then he looked okay in the second one. And then the third one against RB Leipzig, he did not look good at all. Now, Tack and I talked about this. This can happen with an 18-year-old center back. They're going to have good games. They're going to have bad games. It's part of the development arc, usually in their first season. We'll see if he ends up starting this weekend. He didn't start midweek in the German Cup, but that could also be for rotation. So let's see. If he starts this weekend, I'm pretty sure he'll finally be in this roster. I mean, he was in the roster back in September, but he didn't play. He wasn't playing for Augsburg at the time. So we'll see now. My guess is these 5. The only switch that could be there is Noah Banks for Tristan Blackman. MLS Defender of the Year, Tristan Blackman. Again, not my roster, guys. Not my roster. What I think Pochettino might do. So I have Banks here because I think he'll probably lean towards Banks, but it would not surprise me at all to see Tristan Blackman there instead. Those are the center backs that I think he brings. Midfielders now. Now, this one is interesting. Sorry about the StreamYard compresses files when you put them in. So, midfielders, I think he brings Johnny Cardoso, Tanner Tessman, Aiden Morris, Tyler Adams, Christian Roldan, Sebastian Berhalter, and yes, Sean Zawadzki. You might be surprised to see Zawadzki there, but Poch tried to call him up twice. He tried to call him in the Gold Cup, and he tried to call him up in September. And both times he got injured right before camp. Now he's fit, and he's playing for Columbus. So I think Poch is going to try again. Now, Johnny Cardoso is coming back from injury. He's in their roster for this weekend. So I think it's just enough time between that first game now and the 15th. I think there's enough time for Johnny Cardoso to be healthy enough to be called into this roster. Again, guys, not my roster. What I think Poch is going to do. Now, no McKennie here. The reason I don't have McKennie here is because Poch used him in the attacking midfield position in the last camp, and because there's so many injuries in that particular position of attacking midfield, I don't think he's going to have McKennie in this category. I think we'll have McKennie in that one. So I have McKennie there. But as far as the midfielders who play in that double pivot in a 3-4-2-1, I think these are the 6, 7 or so players that he brings. There's a chance Aiden Morris could not be there, and maybe James Sands is there. And oh wait, is Tessman injured? Is that the one injury that we missed out on? That I missed out on? Let me double check this for you. Tanner Tessman. I don't see on FOTMob that he's injured. He just played 89 minutes for Strasbourg, guys. He just, on October 26th, 3 days ago, he played 89 minutes for Strasbourg. He's not injured. But this is my guess. Jack McGlynn won't be getting a call-up, Judgmental Deity, because he is also injured. I think he would call up Jack McGlynn over Berhalter or Zawadzki. But because he is also injured, these are the 7 midfielders that I think he brings. Like it or not, Poch's roster, not mine. Now, for attacking midfielders, we are missing the two starters, Pulisic. Polar says, no, he was subbed at halftime. Look again. I'm looking now. It says he was subbed off in the 90th minute of Lyon's 2-1 win over Strasbourg. He might have been subbed at halftime versus Basel, but he was subbed at halftime versus Basel, but that doesn't mean he was injured, Polar, because on October 26th, he played 90 minutes against Strasbourg. Lyon won that game 2-1. So I don't think it was an injury sub. It could have been an injury sub, or it could have just been, a change they wanted to make for the sake of the game. So Brendan Aronson, Weston McKennie, and Diego Luna are the three that I think will go as the quote-unquote attacking midfielders. So Pulisic injured, Tillman injured, Zendejas all injured. Now, they're saying, what's his name? Tillman could be back. Tillman could be back next week in the Champions League. I think any player that's just coming back as the roster is announced is not going to go. That's my guess. And frankly, they probably shouldn't. Because of the injuries to so many of our guys, I think we should be careful doing a transatlantic flight and playing here twice. So if they're just coming back from an injury, I would say don't bring them. Johnny's a little bit of an exception because Johnny will be back this weekend. So maybe Poch doesn't bring Johnny. He's also seen a lot of Tillman. He hasn't seen a lot of Johnny. So I think more likely than not, Johnny will be there, but not Tillman. These are the three attacking midfielders I think he brings. I don't think Gio Reyna makes it. Didn't even get off the bench against a second division side in the German Cup in midweek. But these are the midfielders I think we're going to bring. So Nate says, Pulisic expected to be back for Parma. Milan fan. Yes, it's possible that he will be on the bench. However, given Pulisic's injury history and the nagging injury that he's had all season, I think Poch lets him stay this time. I think he lets him stay and rest and not, we can't have an injured Pulisic. And muscle injuries are very, very notorious with Pulisic. We cannot have an injured Pulisic for the World Cup, so I'm guessing he lets him stay in Milan and rests for this one. It is unfortunate. And maybe Poch decides to bring Tillman. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to err on the safe side and say he's not going to bring Tillman or Zendejas. And we're going to see Aronson, McKennie, and Diego Luna instead. Any other guys that he could potentially call up? Not really. I mean, maybe Luca de la Torre, but he isn't even a starter anymore for San Diego, so I would be surprised if he calls him up. I don't know. I don't know what Poch is going to do. I'm going on my best guess based on who's healthy and injured and who, made it into other camps. So these are the three I think that go. Next up, we have the forwards, and I think this one is pretty straightforward. So long as they are all healthy and playing, it's going to be Fuller and Balogun, Haji Wright, and Ricardo Pepi. Balogun's obviously the starter. Pepi is now back from injury. And then Haji Wright, of course, is injury-free and also scored a brace against Australia in the last camp. So I think these are the three that go. Is there a chance that Patrick Agyemang could make it? Maybe. But Patrick Agyemang didn't get any minutes in the last camp and isn't exactly tearing up the championship like Haji Wright is, or even Josh Sargent is. So I don't think he should be there personally. But again, we'll see what Poch does. It's sometimes hard to dig into Poch's mind because things change so much from camp to camp. So yeah, my guess is Fuller and Balogun, Haji Wright, and Ricardo Pepi. Are there outside chances of anybody else coming in? Not that I can see. Right? I don't think judgmental deity. Agyemang left MLS, so he no longer gets charity call-ups / minutes. Yeah, exactly. But also, he shouldn't be called up. He's not killing it in the championship either. I know he has 1 goal and a few assists, but it's also the championship, right? You should be, if you want a national team call-up, you have to be crushing it the way that Haji Wright is, or even Josh Sargent was up until the last 2 months. Although Sargent did get an assist last week. We'll see if that restores some of his flagging confidence. But I don't think Sargent will be there. I think maybe Agyemang will be there. We'll wait and see what happens. But if Agyemang is there, I don't think he'll be there over any of these three. I think Poch will bring him as a fourth striker. That is my guess. So I guess the big questions that we don't know is third goalkeeper, a potential fourth fullback or wingback, I should call them. And then between Noah Kai Banks and Tristan Blackman for the fifth center back. Midfield, is it going to be Johnny Cardoso? Is it going to be Zawadzki, Aiden Morris, James Sands? Those are kind of the guys on the fringe. Cardoso's not on the fringe, but he's on the fringe because of his injury situation. And then attacking mids with Pulisic's injury, with, Tillman's injury, with Zendejas' injury. I don't think there's a lot of options there. So we'll see. We will see. And then the strikers, I think, is pretty straightforward. Thursday next week, Poch names the roster. Obviously, we'll cover it. And then don't forget, guys, on Wednesday, the 5th, the under-17s open their under-17 World Cup campaign against Burkina Faso, a African team. Now, African teams typically do well in the under-17 World Cup for reasons which I will not explain, but they generally do quite well. In fact, the under-17s just lost 3-1 to Mali. To be fair, that was without Kevin Sullivan and Mathis Albert, the two best players. So this under-17 team, as talented as it is, has definitely not looked as cohesive as the U20s. The U20 team might not have been as talented in terms of high ceiling players, but it was a very cohesive team, and they played really well together. The under-17s have kind of the opposite problem. They have a lot of high ceiling players. However, the coach doesn't seem to know what he's doing. And it's a good roster. Can they pull it together and do well at the under-17 World Cup? Time will tell, but obviously TAC and I will cover it the same way we covered the under-20s. Live watch-alongs at TAC's, post-game at mine. Hopefully this team can go far. They have the ability to go far in that tournament. However, time will tell. Can they be a cohesive unit? It doesn't. If they don't do well, it will be disappointing for sure because they have the talent to do well, and questions should be looked at the coach. It doesn't necessarily mean, and I'll say this now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't good players if the team doesn't do well. Let me clarify. In the 2019 Under-17 World Cup, there were 4 players in that team who are or have been regular USMNT players and ended up being good players that did not look good in that tournament. Those are Joe Scally, Gianluca Busio, Giovanni Reina, and Ricardo Pepi. They all really underperformed in that under-17 World Cup. 4 months later, Gio was scoring golazzos for Dortmund. So, and Ricardo Pepi, we all know what happened to him. We would like them to do well. But under-17, Mexico has won the under-17 World Cup, right? It doesn't usually translate to first-team success. All of the African teams, Nigeria, for example, has more under-17 World Cups than anybody, and that doesn't translate to the senior level. So it'd be nice for them to do well, and it would be good for excitement, and certainly good to get some eyes on some of these players. But even if they don't do well, I'm not going to be too worried. I still think the high-ceiling players are the high-ceiling players, and a team can be mismanaged, which there's a lot of question marks about their coach, Gonzalo Segares, how he has them playing. Can he build a cohesive unit? That is the big, big question. So, anyways, this was mostly about the Pochettino roster. Thanks for watching, guys. I got to go get to work. Have a great rest of your day. Hit that like button if you have not already hit it. Check out the Patreon. Link is in the description below if anybody wants to check it out. Thank you to everybody who supports the channel that way. And have a great Wednesday. Happy Hump Day.